It was just past midnight on a bitterly cold, windswept night in the early 1970s. David Reynolds had been driving for hours on Route 66, America's Mother Road, which snaked like a gray ribbon through the Arizona desert. His headlights carved through the darkness, illuminating the cracked asphalt and the skeletal outlines of mesquite trees swaying violently in the wind. The radio buzzed with static between songs, almost as if the air itself was straining under the weight of the night. Then in the corner of his vision he saw her, a lone figure standing rigid on the shoulder of the road. A young woman, her thumb extended, pale in the glare of the headlights. Her dress was an old, faded blue, clinging damply to her body, and in her hands she clutched a small leather satchel. There was something about her posture, her stillness. It was unnaturally composed. David slowed his car. "Hey, do you need a ride?" he called. She nodded silently and slid into the passenger seat. Her presence made the car feel heavier, as if the air itself had thickened. David tried to break the silence. "Where are you headed?" he asked, glancing at her profile in the rearview mirror. Her voice was a barely audible whisper. "Home, please." The highway stretched endlessly, the desert around them a void of shadows and jagged rock formations. The moon, pale and distant, cast long, grotesque shapes across the landscape. David noticed something strange. Her shoes, delicate leather with buckles, looked like they had been worn decades earlier. Her dress, too, seemed out of place, a relic from another time. A chill ran down his spine. Hours, or what felt like hours, passed in eerie silence, punctuated only by the hum of the engine. Finally, as they approached a ghostly town called Seligman, she told him to stop. "Here," she whispered, almost fading into the shadows. He turned to speak, but the seat beside him was empty. The bag she'd carried was gone, too. The town around him was deserted, buildings abandoned, paint peeling, signs swaying in the wind. A broken neon sign flickered. Population 456 after sunset. The next day, shaken and desperate for answers, David researched the history of the area. He found a newspaper clipping from 1958. A young girl had died in a car accident on this very stretch of Route 66. Her dress, described in meticulous detail, was identical to the one he'd seen. Locals told tales of the vanishing hitchhiker, a spectral figure doomed to wander the roads, appearing to lonely travelers, silently seeking a ride home she can never reach. Over the following years, dozens of drivers reported similar experiences. A quiet girl appearing out of nowhere, offering no words but only a haunting plea, vanishing before reaching her destination. Some left flowers, candles, even notes in hopes of guiding her spirit. David never drove that road at night again. But on some evenings, when the wind howls just right, he swears he hears the soft echo of footsteps tapping on his car roof, a reminder that some souls never find rest. It was a stormy night in 1983. Rain hammered the highway like drumming fists, turning the road slick and reflective under the weak glow of the rusty wheel truck stop's flickering neon sign. The air smelled of wet asphalt, pine trees, and diesel exhaust, and the occasional rumble of trucks echoed through the darkened forest of northern Pennsylvania. Sarah and Mark, exhausted from a 12-hour road trip, pulled into the gravel lot of the old motel, desperate for warmth and rest. The rusty wheel looked as though it had been frozen in time. Wood-paneled walls stained by decades of cigarette smoke, a lobby littered with outdated magazines, and a dim light flickering over the front desk. The night clerk, a gaunt, wiry man with hollow eyes, handed them a key without meeting their gaze. "Room 7. Don't go out tonight," he muttered, his voice low, almost a warning. Ignoring the strange tone, they entered their room. The air inside smelled of damp carpet and old pine. As they unpacked, the rain intensified, drumming against the windows like fingers trying to get in. Around midnight, faint noises began to echo through the hallway. Whispers, floorboards creaking, the soft jangle of metal keys. Mark tried to laugh it off. "It's an old building," he said. "Nothing to worry about." But Sarah's unease grew with each passing minute. Suddenly, their door rattled violently. "Who's there?" Mark shouted, but only silence responded. Then a hand, pale, streaked with what looked like dried blood, pressed against the frosted glass of the door. Sarah screamed, and Mark rushed to barricade it. The hallway outside whispered their names, dragging them down a nightmare they couldn't escape. The rusty wheel had a dark history. Decades earlier, a serial killer named William "Rusty" Carver had preyed on unsuspecting travelers, luring them with promises of shelter, and then brutally murdering them. He was caught in 1977, but the legend persisted. His spirit was said to haunt the motel, reenacting his murders for anyone unfortunate enough to stay in the rooms he'd claimed. Hours passed like days. Shadowy figures moved through the hallway, their whispers cutting through the silence. Sarah and Mark could hear dragging sounds, muffled cries, and the faint, metallic scent of blood. When dawn finally arrived, they peered outside cautiously. The rooms next door were empty, frozen in dust and silence, yet scratches marred their door and an old stain lingered in the carpet, a reminder that their terror had not been imagined. They left the rusty wheel as quickly as they could, never to return. Yet travelers along that stretch of Pennsylvania highway still speak in hushed tones of the motel, warning newcomers. Some motels never forget their guests. And some roads carry more than just cars. They carry echoes of the dead.